Hey everybody, we have a ZVT today. This is game 3 in a series between effOrt and Flash. In the first two games, Flash took a pretty commanding lead, and despite effOrt playing out of his mind mechanically, he's done really well. Hopefully, okay, good. There goes the music. I was like, I don't know if I can cast this music the entire game. Anyhow. So effOrt just trying out a couple of unique strategies versus Flash, and it's been very interesting to see how Flash has pivoted in each game. Going for, in game 1, he realized he was up against a very aggressive lurker contain, so he just went straight for the triple racks into tank and vessel. And in this in the last game, he was a little bit behind early on due to an early Ling attack, and so he just transitioned into the +1 5 racks. Really smart play by Flash to just pivot every time something happens, and reading his opponent really well. So we'll have to see if the same thing goes on. Again, this is going to be on Circuit Breaker. This is the new standard for pretty much all pros. Instead of Fighting Spirit, I guess everybody finally got tired of Fighting Spirit. And or realize that it's completely broken for TVZ, not sure. But in any case, we are definitely going to be seeing another great game. No doubt in my mind that effOrt, if he can get the early game lead, the early mid-game lead, he can definitely pull out the game, but the longer the game goes on, we see that Flash has the mechanics and the map awareness to deal with any sort of late game scenarios. It's very hard to break Flash once he gets into that late game. So effOrt's real goal is to just try to throw his opponent off with whatever he can in the early game, going for link speed before lair, or going for like a hidden third base or anything like that. So pretty standard stuff from effOrt, going for that 13 pool, as is standard on this map. And Flash might actually, I don't know if he's just trying to run that SCV away. Really good micro from effOrt to get lots of shots in on that SCV. And meanwhile, things are just progressing as normal. Nothing out of the ordinary so far. One racks gasless FE versus triple hatch layer. So good stuff to see. We'll have to see what effOrt decides to do with his first couple lings. That's always the big thing. If effOrt makes 4 or 6 lings, does he go attack? Does he only make 2 lings and just chase the SCV in his base around? It's always interesting to see how he deals with scenarios using his lings. Definitely one of the best ling users in my opinion. Although I know a lot of people might disagree, say that Jaedong or whatever is better. I think effOrt is pretty far up there. He does really smart play with his lings. He did it in StarCraft 2 as well. So the lings are going to come out. They're just going to try to pick off this SCV, but it's unlikely that he's actually going to be able to. Oh wow, great surround. So he actually does get the SCV. He's going to be able to deny scouting information from the Terran player for quite a while, and this allows him to go for the link speed first instead of the lair. Automatically, this means he's going to be going for a very aggressive build. He's just going to be scouting around with these lings, trying to find any follow-up scouts, but Flash isn't really worried too much. He's not going to send out that second scout quite yet. Just going to play safe and rely on his star sense to deal with any sort of crazy shenaniganry. I love the positioning of these lings plus the overlords. Basically allows him to check every corner of the map and make sure there's no scouting SCVs coming along. And there's definitely going to be a big link attack coming in. The bunker coming down from Flash is really smart. And it's going to allow him probably to deal with this, but the links can still run up directly into the main base and cause some trouble there, as well as if you split them off, you can still pick off a couple SCVs in the natural. So we'll have to see what effOrt does with this, if he plays his lings really smart, or if he just tries to brute force it in. We'll have to see. He does go for the 2 lings down below. He's actually going to try to go for the surround in this bunker. I don't think this is a good idea. And oh god, that I mean, that was great from Flash. absolutely great. Like, he pulled his SCVs at the perfect angle, had the perfect wall with those 3 Marines to prevent the full surround. So it was really well played by Flash, but it means that effOrt is going to be quite a bit behind. And you see he's actually going to be going for the lurkers to follow this up. This is kind of a Hail Mary at this point for effOrt. He lost a lot of lings there for almost no damage. He's going to try to be annoying with this one ling and continue to get scouting information. But eventually this ling is going to get cleaned up, and he's going to be in a world of trouble as the game goes later and later. He does pick off an SCV, a bit surprising that Flash just let that happen, but Flash occasionally just being greedy. He doesn't want to pull any of his SCVs off the line. He'd rather just continue making them. And the first lurkers are going to be going are going to be coming out. I wonder if effOrt's actually just going to be going for a big lurker ling break. When you're so far behind in the game, you might as well go for that play. There's no point in trying to go for the macro play with the triple hatch. You might as well just go for the all-in with the ling lurker. See if you can kill off that bunker. See if you can kill off a significant number of Marine medic. And if you're lucky, you can actually do enough damage where you can actually just straight up kill your opponent. But surprisingly aggressive move out from Flash here. He wants to try to stop the lurkers or the lings from actually getting set up in front of his base. He doesn't want to deal with that sort of headache. But he is setting himself up in a pretty precarious situation. If he's not careful with the way that he's moving across this bridge, he can definitely get surrounded and just killed instantly. And first couple lurkers are going to come out, and they're actually moving across the map. Flash actually pivoting upwards to surround the lurkers. This is surprising play, but I'm not entirely sure it's good. The lurker lings are still hiding on the high ground, and a couple lurkers are going to come down. They're going to be able to pick off quite a few of these. He's actually, effOrt is going to be able to clean up that entire force. Wow, excellent play so far. He is going to lose a couple of these lurkers down over here, which is a bit unfortunate, but really nicely played by effOrt so far. He killed off a lot of Marine medic for almost nothing, and even though this is the +1 5 racks, it bought him a lot of time. It bought him 2 cycles to make nothing but drones, and he is actually on his way to Hive. This is looking really, really great for effOrt. There's no tanks in sight, and it's going to be really hard to break this with just a 5 racks and no units. Obviously, Flash was really waiting on his other units to come out of the barracks. He was waiting for 1 or 2 more cycles, and then he could break that with a really good sandwich. But effOrt just completely outsmarted him by having links on the high ground. Flash really wasn't expecting that move, and it really paid off for effOrt. He's been able to get the lead. He's already researching up to that hive. Looks like he canceled building. I don't know if he wanted to go for a late spire, or if that was an evo chamber. I wasn't really paying too close attention, but lots of Marine medic coming out. Looks like he's gonna try to break this right now. This is really good spread from Flash, but he's gonna lose a lot of units still. And even this one lurker can hold this for quite a while. But he is actually just going to run up and snipe it, and effOrt's surprisingly not paying attention. effOrt's usually really, really fast and good about paying attention to his lurkers during a lurker contain, but oh, that was a great hit. That was a great hit from those follow-up lurkers. But we do see the Spire coming up right now. I wonder if effOrt might try to go for that Guardian play. I would be surprised. A lot more of the Marines going down, and tons and tons of damage done to the Terran army. But there are no Sunkens back at home, and it's going to become increasingly difficult for... I love this play. He's just walking over and holding position to make it look like he's about to burrow, to try to force out an extra stem. Very clever play by effOrt, but it's not going to work out too well. Meanwhile, the third base is finally getting up and running for effOrt, but he is facing this problem of he's just going to be dealing with this large group with just Lurker Ling, and it's a little bit worrisome, but he actually picks off quite a few, and a couple of Vultures coming up here right now. The Hydros not being placed correctly on that ramp. Usually you keep one Hydros on that ramp just to make sure this doesn't happen, but Flash just doing a really good job of getting in there, killing off a couple drones, and scouting out what's going on over there. Well, I wonder what the status of the Defilers is. I haven't really been noticing the upgrades. I don't know if the Defilers are out by now. Looks like the Defiler, it is done. The Defiler Mound, rather. And Flash again trying to push in here and do damage, but his engagements have been a little bit haphazard in the sloppy, and he's been getting outsmarted repeatedly by effOrt, who is just placing his lurkers really, really intelligently and moving his lings also very intelligently. So fourth base going down for effOrt. He's going to be getting that far base economy up. The 4 gases, it's going to be much harder for Aaron to deal with that once that economy actually gets going. In the meantime, Flash just kind of patrolling the map, trying to get an eye out. And if you do this movement really smartly, the Zerg won't have enough in position to respond. And it looks like that's the case. Right now, there's almost nothing in position. The first Defiler does come out, but I'm not sure if Consume is actually done. And there was a chance for Flash to actually break that base, but he goes for a little bit of a safer play, pulls back. He's just going to establish his third base and continue taking out. The first armory is about to come up, and so here comes the big mech switch. All of the factories going down, all of the barracks going up. So we're probably going to be going into this late game. This is surprisingly close considering how far effOrt put himself behind in the early game with that early Ling attack. But overall, this has been a huge success for him so far. Really well played. This is why I love watching effOrt go for that lurker play. He's really one of the best players when it comes to lurker contains. He's such a high APM and he has such an attention to detail that he's very easily able to outsmart the Terran player and just play really, really intelligently early on. So a couple Lings over here just trying to scout out, see if there's a base. Does see that the CC is going down. That's going to be a big target for effOrt later on in this game. Right now, it looks like he's just trying to get his full economy up. The economy disparity is actually pretty huge right now. It's amazing how much more stuff Flash has right now. But it's all going to change as soon as these extra, the extra 4, 5, 6, 7, once hatcheries 6, 7, and 8 go up, then Zerg is going to be able to blast out units super, super quickly. And Flash is actually, he's just continuing to control the middle of the map, putting down as many mines as possible in front of this third base. And what this does is it makes it impossible for the Zerg player to really reinforce or get a good sandwich on the mech army later on. Surprising play by effOrt. He's actually going to be going for these this middle switch early before his opponent really has many tanks. It's a bit surprising, especially because he's going to fight right over a whole bunch of Marine medic and science vessels and lose all of his mutalists. So definitely not optimal play. I wouldn't call that optimal right there, but I guess the idea is to just kind of trick his opponent into building a couple of Goliaths so they can overrun him with a big ground army later on. I'm not sure. That was a bit of a question mark right there. But effOrt is, I think because of that, he put himself even further behind in the numbers. So he has very few units right now. You see, he's only sitting at 112, 110 supply compared to 160 of Flash. So this is a little questionable. Imagine if he hadn't made those mutalists. Right now, he could actually be sitting at 130 supply, 140 supply, and actually have a realistic chance of breaking his opponent with huge numbers of Ling Ultra Defiler. But God, Lings are so good sometimes. Whenever I try that, like all my lings just die instantly, but that was really impressive. Just one control group of lings taking out 6 or 7 vultures over there. And good play so far just to control this area outside of his 4th base from effOrt, but eventually this mech army is going to get very strong. Meanwhile, Flash just continuing to control the center of the map with a handful of Marine Medic as well as some tanks. So this is a bit surprising, and it looks like effOrt's going to go for a big attack here, but he doesn't have any defilers, so things are not looking good anymore. I know I said that effOrt was doing a really good job because he got those 2 macro cycles and got his 4th base up, but he hasn't really been able to do anything with it, and it's been a problem. He's still so far behind in supply, just barely peaking 130 right now. So it's a little bit. I'm a little bit nervous for effOrt's chance in this game. Again, Flash is being able to get up to that huge economy that he likes. He's in a split map position. All the bases on the left-hand side have been taken, and Flash is just going to max out on primarily tanks, vultures, and build a bunch of missile turrets in his bases. That's all he has to do. He doesn't even have to attack. All he has to do is just sit there and wait for Zerg to max, but effOrt's so far behind, it's going to take him years to max. It's going to take forever. He's going to try to get back into the game with a couple of clever drops, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced this is going to work. If he does this properly, he could definitely get a couple of good drops in to that that high ground base over there in the top left, but it's not working out for him so far. I'm not sure, man. Sorry if my enthusiasm is a little low. It's just I honestly feel like effOrt's kind of thrown this game a little bit. He's going to try some drop play, but as long as Flash has been on top of building his missile turrets and getting his units in place, he's going to be 100% fine. He doesn't really have to do anything. Flash sees the drop coming in, so I'm not sure if he already sent stuff in position. He's got all the missile turrets that he needs, and he might actually be sending a couple units back into the main just in case. But in the meantime, 2 of these missile turrets are going to be able to take out at least one of these overlords. And effOrt is going to be able to drop everything down here, but this is a thin, narrow area to actually go through, and it's going to cause a lot of problems for him. He's going to try to break this base down in the bottom left, and there isn't a ton of units there because Flash was really trying to make sure he didn't die over on the other side of the map, but it's a little bit questionable. He does get onto the high ground. He gets the swarm up on top of these tanks. So he's actually going to be able to kill off most of this force right now. If effOrt can quickly reinforce right now, he's going to be in really good shape. But there are already tanks being made and a couple of these vultures coming down to reinforce. If he keeps an Ultralist on the ramp, he can actually hold on to this for quite a while. With the Dark Swarm there, because nothing can actually move up the map, move up the ramp. But with only just a couple of Ultralists, he's not going to be able to do a ton of damage. Like I said before, most of your damage comes from Lings. You can have a lot of Ultras, and they're really, really good. They're amazing against Bio as well, because they do 20 damage, so they 2-shot most Bio units. But against Mech, the Ultras are just a meat shield. That's all they do. All the damage comes from the Lings that come up behind it, or the Lurkers that get underneath the swarm. If you don't have any Lings with those Ultras, then they don't do a whole lot. So it's a very precarious position for Zerg players to just be really smart about their mix of units. Ugh. Excuse me. And more swarms coming out. These are really good swarms, and a big attack coming in here with lots of units. I think effOrt might actually be able to break this, especially if he can drop to the high ground. That's going to be very difficult, very obnoxious to deal with. And effOrt may have found the opening he needs to actually get into this game. I hope he didn't drop his defiler first. Okay, no, he didn't. Whew. Gonna be like, that would have been the dumbest thing ever. So, this is eventually gonna get cleaned up, but for the time being, it's going to be really obnoxious to deal with. There are a ton of swarms down here, but not any more units to follow up. effOrt is really drilling this bottom right-hand base, and he's starting to actually come up in the game. This is starting to look actually kind of like a comeback. Flash is just sending all of his units down there to deal with it, and he hasn't been able to actually stop this from getting broken, despite his best efforts. So, running lower on bases, with good link splits you can actually kill all these tanks, but with good link splits is the key word there. And this is one of the problems that you fall into when you go for a science vessel-less style. When you don't have any science vessels, then it's very easy to just continually drop things on tanks and things like that. And lots of damage done to this. This is actually kind of amazing how much damage these tanks have been able to do, how many lings they've been able to kill. And if effOrt can't push up into here soon, it's going to be really difficult for him to actually kill off this base and destabilize Flash. If Flash can stabilize this bottom left-hand base, it's going to become a pretty dire situation for him. But more units being dropped in, more and more units coming around, and this is a very good play from effOrt so far, just finding this opening and just drilling it super hard and forcing his opponent to respond to him. But with eventually this should be able to be cleaned up, but really good drops on top of these tanks. This is what I'm talking about. When you don't have vessels, it's so easy to just drop on top of these tanks. Very good Vulture run by here that might be able to pick off quite a few drones. We'll have to see. Meanwhile, Flash has managed to finally push this back. He's got the missile turrets finally coming up into that high ground area, and I think this is over. I don't think there's going to be any more pushes into this bottom left-hand base, which worries me a little bit because it means that effOrt is in a situation where he doesn't have any more drones left. He lost a lot of drones to those vultures, and it's going to be harder and harder for him to actually push through and deal with this mech army as it gets later and later in the game. He's still holding onto that trump card of the Master Realist, but he doesn't have any more gas left. He's going to have to save up quite a while for the gas. And this is the time period where you usually want to have the Mutalist, is right at this particular point in time when the turn is pushing down. You switch into the Mutalist, you kill off all these tanks, and then you can destabilize that third. But instead he kept drilling with the Ultras and the Defilers. Maybe it would have been better for him to just switch into pure Mutaling to actually break those bases. More and more units coming up into the top base as well. The 6 o'clock base has been killed off. Now Flash is targeting the 12 o'clock base, and this is, like the last game, this is the beginning of the end. If Terran can break both of these bases, then there's no hope for the Zerg, because you get into a split map situation with 0 queens, and there's literally nothing you can do. That's just the end of the game. And lots of good swarms and plagues going on, but there's no units. I mean, with no units, what do you do? What do you do? And when the mech army is bigger than the Zerg army, it doesn't matter how good your swarms are. It doesn't matter how good your plagues are. You just you're not going to be able to kill anything because you're not going to be able to even get close to it. Each tank's good units, you know. More and more tanks reinforcing this. The hatchery goes down, so both the 12 and the 6 o'clock hatchery gone for the Zerg player. The natural and the main are completely mined out. The third base is close to being mined out, as we saw just there. So this is a situation where Zerg has to get a little bit creative. Again, this is can we do clever drop play? Is there anything we can do in terms of just really smart cross map pressure, just pressuring on one side of the map, then pressuring on the other side of the map. This is a little bit smart to drop on the high ground, kill off a couple of these turrets so they can do a bigger drop into this high ground area. But there's tanks in position already. There's tons of vultures ready to swoop in, so it's... I mean, like, he's going to be able to kill off a couple of these missile turrets, which is going to make it easier for him to come in here later, but it's not the damage that he needs right now. It's definitely going to push this back for now. It's going to cause a couple liftoffs, and the evacuation of the SCVs, but it's not enough right now. He's going to try loading them back in just to be cute, and he may drop them back again later on when all the units leave, but holy crap, that's so many ultras. There's quite a few ultras out right now, and if they drop in the right place, you can definitely get some damage done, but again, this is a dwindling army. He's looking better than he did last game, where he had almost nothing versus this split map mech army, but without those 12 and 6 clog bases, it's so much harder for him to actually deal with the pressure that's coming his way. He's going to try this drop pressure onto the high ground, as well as a flood of lings coming in from the low ground. And actually, this is doing a really good job of breaking this third base from the Terran player. There are a ton of Ultralists here. They're going to be able to push this back for now. They're not really going to be able to do much at this point in time, because really you need to kill off the Terran army several times in order for this to matter, or kill off a ton of SCVs, but it's not happening so far. He's going to try to kill off a couple missile turrets and open up a route into that main, but it's a little bit difficult. Meanwhile, he's pushing it into the middle of the map, and this is actually really clever play from effOrt. He's actually breaking the center map control and finding a foothold in the map. He's going to try to pour across here with even more units, while cutting off the reinforcements with just a handful of units. But there are just so many units here that it's really difficult to do anything, and he doesn't have any swarms up because he was too lazy to do it earlier, so not as good there because he didn't have the dark swarms in place at the right times. If there had been swarms there, that would have been I think a huge turning point for effOrt. But again, we're finding ourselves in this situation. The supply disparity is at 130 to maxed out 200 supply, so it doesn't even matter that he found these small areas to break because he wasn't able to do anything with it. And that's the whole problem with late game ZVT. Unless you go for queens, you really have to continually think 2 steps ahead of your opponents. Like, yeah, you may be able to break an area of your opponent, but that doesn't matter if all you do is just trade units and your opponent lifts off. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't do anything. So you really have to either get completely on top of the supply production, or you just have to think. You have to always think 1 step ahead and think, I'm gonna drop here, break this tank line so that I can drop into the main afterwards, or I'm gonna drop here and break this so I can do a huge big run by on the other side of the map. But right now, effOrt's not really taking full advantage of what he has in this game, and that was a really good mine hit, really good mine drag right there, and he actually is going to be able to pick off all of these missile turrets down here if he's playing this correctly and properly queuing that. And if you can kill off all those missile turrets, again, that opens up that drop pressure into the the high ground base in the lower left-hand corner. He did manage to kill off almost all of those, so there is definitely the possibility of that drop play now. This is really cool to see from effOrt, immediately loading up, but he's actually going to have to just drop these on top of the tanks because he could just outright lose to this push, but not working really well against this many vultures. When you have this many vultures, dropping individual lings actually doesn't matter because they just get one shot instantly. And again, we're at the supply disparity, 115 to 200. Like, it's getting pretty rough. This is where you want to go for that Mutalisk switch, but he doesn't have the gas to do it anymore. He spent so much into those ultras to try to break those bases that he doesn't have any gas left anymore. He can't make any sort of huge, clever tech switches that can actually just completely destroy everything. I think honestly the big turning point in the game could have come when he had broken that high ground area on the fifth base for Terran, because that's the point in time where you can actually make the Muta switch and make it really count. You just switch to Mutaling, and your opponent can never actually catch up because they have to make Goliath. But you have Mutaling versus Goliath, and that's just hilarious. So, but more and more units just being thrown across the map, but Flash always has units in position. He's able to pick them off, and the disparity is just growing larger and larger and larger, with Flash again pushing across the middle of the map, breaking this area, and all the drones at that 3 o'clock base are going to go down, and there's very, very, very little mining going on for effOrt, and he's probably going to be tapping out in just a second. I would be surprised to see the GG coming out pretty soon. But again, effOrt just holding on until the very last second. He really wants to see how much damage he can get done, and see if he can actually come back in the game. He's not ready to give up, even though he's 100 supply down. That's true. There's the GG though. Oh gosh, 3-0 for Flash in this series. It's been brutal. On to game 4.